or marketer, growth hacker. So that's how we can actually even adjust our conversation. Let's wait a few more minutes. By the way, how do you think do we have today? SDRs or SDR leaders? So yeah, I guess we can see the results, right? Yep.
Oh, did their results get published?
Let me check it. Yep, we have it. So yeah. So we have more sales and SDR leaders. So pretty cool. And like 57% and 25% SDRs and BDRs. Cool, cool. So I guess you will learn more about some best practices, and I hope you will implement a few things after this webinar. So today we will have Gabriel Blackwell from Gong. I'm super excited to introduce you, Gabriel.
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name's Gabrielle, or GB. I am an SDR manager at Gong. I've been in the outbound SDR space since forever and a day ago. I've held positions as an AE as well, sales enablement too, but have very much been dedicated to figuring out how to become the best sales development leader that I possibly can. So excited to share some things that I've learned along the way, and hopefully things that could support you in what you're trying to do. So yeah, thanks, William.
Cool, cool. And yeah, and my name is William, and as the team leader here at Reply, doing my best, learning from other SDL leaders, just like Gabriel. So yeah. Today we will be covering two things: how to organize an effective SDR coaching for your new hires, and we will talk about personal productivity tips and tools to help your actual SDRs organize their daily routine. So how they can structure their day and their time blocks, things like that. So of course, we will record this webinar and we will share the video, the recording, and slide deck after this webinar. So yeah. And yeah, let's get started. Topic number one, how to organize effective SDR coaching for your new hires. And before we jump right into the topic, here's another quick poll. We will have a few of them today, just to kind of improve and change our slides based on your answers. So here's the question: what do you consider the biggest challenge faced by SDRs? There are 5 options. You can choose a few of them. So let's wait like a minute for your answers. And yeah, Gabriel, what do you think? What's gonna be? It's gonna be.
How would I vote on this one? What I guess the biggest? Honestly, I think it's got to be time management. Is probably one big piece. That's what I see. But I mean, just for the sake of today's webinar, I'm going to say lack of coaching. Like this is what I'm going to hit on quite a bit. So those would be like all of them, but those would be the top 2. I don't know. Lack of feedback loop is tough. Like if you don't know, if you're not getting feedback, how do you know if you're going the right direction or not? But yeah, what do you think?
I think it's lack of proper tools and tips. Because yeah, if you're a newcomer, if an SDR role is your very first job, it's kind of hard to connect all new sales tools together. Oh no,
time management. But
yeah,
it might be biased because that's what I came in. So is it like, did I do some weird inception thing? And lack of coaching?
Lack of coaching, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, I got it accepted. Thanks, y'all, for validating what I was saying.
Cool, yeah, cool. So, and yeah, I guess it's relevant because of having so many SDR leaders. Yeah. And then, yeah, putting mic back to you, Gabriel.
All right, cool, wonderful. Do you want me to share my screen so that way I can, all right, perfect. So let me do this. Hey everyone. All right, so what I'm going to do today, I recognize that the kind of top 2 agenda items that we have were really about kind of like, what were they? How to organize effective SDR coaching for your new hires, but also, topics on or tips on how to help them be more productive. So in terms of like how to organize effective SDR coaching for new hires, I really have some key principles for leadership and coaching. And these to me are the foundational elements that support really being able to provide really effective coaching. So like my key principles to coaching, motivating, and challenging SDRs, and this is going to be a little bit more like philosophical than actual than very specific tactics, but you also will learn some tactics in there. But my whole thing is we kind of have to get into the mindset of someone who can coach, motivate, and challenge. And it is going to be a lot about laying down those foundational elements that are going to establish trust with your reps, really to be able to establish yourself as someone who is credible by knowing your numbers. That's what's really going to allow a really solid way to provide feedback. And then one big thing that I would share here in terms of this 4th bullet point that I have, teamwork makes the dream work, is the more that I talk to folks who are in the SDR position, especially for folks who are coming into the SDR role for the very first time, like let us not forget as leaders, right, or as sales professionals, the power of relying and depending upon the team to support individual goals, right? So like I'm gonna have a quote in there, but let's get into the first bullet point of establishing agreements. So one of the first things that I do as soon as someone new comes onto my team, whether that's a new hire or whether that's somebody that is moving teams, or if I'm going to a new company and I'm going to inherit some folks, is first thing that I want to know is, what does this person want out of a manager? Do you want somebody who has high expectations out of you or someone who has low expectations out of you? Because here's my thing. I'm going to have high expectations out of them, but I don't want to assume that that's what they want as well. So one of the first things that I do is, what do you want out of a manager? Do you want somebody who has high expectations or low expectations? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say high expectations. Next part of this is, what are your goals for performance? I've met a number of individuals, people that I've managed, people who have mentored me, all the likes. And one of the things that one of the things that I'm learning more and more is not everybody wants to be a superstar, right? At 150% of performance or above. Some people, they just want to come in, do a good job, hit 100% of their OTE and go back home. Those are the things that they value. So another big piece is making sure that I, as a manager, as a leader, as somebody who's going to be a partner to them, is someone who can support them in the ways that they want to be supported, in hitting the goals that they want to hit. I can't all of a sudden say, hey, I want you to be someone that you're not. So very, very first thing that I do is make sure, hey, who do you want to be? What kind of performer do you want to be? Now, the next thing that I'm going to go into is like, what is their why? What are their motivations? These are the things that will become incredibly important moving forward. And because this is how I'll know, like, all right, if someone is intrinsically motivated, like for myself, I was always the kind of person who just wanted to do a good job. No one needs to tell me to do a good job. So if someone is on my, excuse my language, I'm going to swear on this. If someone's on my ass about doing a good job and I'm already like that, I'm like, why are you telling me things that I'm already going to do in the first place? You don't understand me. You don't know me, right? Please go away. And that person loses credibility. But if I, as a manager, am really understanding, okay, like what is this person most motivated by? This is how I can then inspire people. This is how I can challenge people. This is how I can encourage people to go above and beyond. Like some people, they might want a spiff of $20, right? To hit a certain goal, or $50. Others might want for me to spend that $30 on a gift, maybe flowers, maybe a dinner with their partner. So I really want to understand what are the things that are going to be most meaningful to them, that they're going to be motivated by, that are going to inspire them to take them to the next level. Now, the next piece of this is, how would they like for me as a manager to show up for them? So I've already asked the question, what do you want out of a manager, right? Again, not like really 95% of the time, someone is going to say, I want a manager who has high expectations out of me. Then, and like, here are my goals. Here are my motivations. So when I say like, all right, how do you want me to show up for you as a manager? That means, hey, how would you like for me to, like, what's going to be most meaningful for you when you're doing things right? Do you want public praise? Or would you prefer for me just to give you do you want me to just give you a shout out to you individually? Also, hey, one of the big things that I want us to establish is an open two-way format of communication, including feedback. So how do you best receive feedback? Like walk me through some times in the past, whether that's a teacher, a coach, a mentor, whoever else it is, like what are the ways that you've best received feedback? How do they do that? How did you take action on it? Because again, I really want to partner with this person to help me as a manager understand how can I best show up for you in a way that is going to be meaningful, that's going to make you feel recognized, to make sure that I'm not crippling you as a person with my words. So like this is me being very, very intentional about, again, like how is our relationship going to work moving forward? And the last piece of this, right, is I also share with them what I expect from them as a member of the team. So like much in the same way that I'm asking them to share this information with me, I'm also sharing that information with them as well. Like I want to be held to a higher standard. I want to be somebody who has a steep growth trajectory. Like I want to be I hope to be like a super leader as well. Like here's what I'm motivated by. Here's what's super meaningful to me when people are giving me feedback or when they're recognizing me. But I also share like here are my values as a leader. I value two-way forms of communication. I value servant leadership. I want you to be telling me more about what I could be doing better for you than for me just to constantly be like providing constructive criticism. But I also share expectations. So what do those expectations mean? Hey, I expect for you to be on time, right? I expect for you to be prepared. I expect for you to contribute in conversation. I expect for you to demonstrate consideration for the people on your team. I expect for you to raise your hand and let me know when you don't know something. And I also expect for you to tell me when am I not showing up in a way that you need me to show up. So like these are really about establishing the agreements, like laying down those foundational items so that you can build upon that. So the next piece of this is the numbers, right? So I just talked about the relationship that you can establish. The next piece is this is really like your work individually solo as a manager, or sometimes it's going to be with other managers. It's really going to be about, hey, how do you own your business as a manager? And then also how can you start to enable your reps to really own their business? And my belief is that this really starts with understanding your numbers. So I've already talked about a little bit of like setting clear expectations with them and sharing the values. So some expectations can be for KPIs, for example. With my team at Gong, we're in the commercial segment. We're going after companies that are 250 people or less. And so some of the main things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have a certain call, email, and social sends per day and week. But we're also need to be working a certain amount of accounts and contacts on a weekly basis as well on a monthly basis. So like I need to make sure that first and foremost, I'm setting those clear expectations for my reps so they know, hey, I'm either moving in the right direction or I'm falling behind. Now, the next part of this in terms of setting expectations and really owning the numbers is also democratizing access to those numbers. So this can be done through creating views for reps. Like think about a dashboard, for example, in Salesforce. So like can everyone see whether or not they're pacing behind or ahead, or they're on pace for the KPIs that we're setting for them? Now, there's another piece here of like monitoring how my reps are pacing against quota. This is something I'm looking at on a weekly basis. So like I've got a calculator on the back end of things that's letting me know, all right, how many connects have they made? How many connects do they need to make in order to get one opportunity? Like how many opportunities do they already have created? How many futures do they have? And so I can run a calculation on these things and start to see, all right, are you pacing ahead? Are you on pace or are you behind, right? So like if I don't have those numbers, how in the world am I ever going to know how to provide feedback to my reps? Because I don't know where they're going to land. And again, this is what establishes a lot of credibility for me as a manager to offer up legitimate advice and guidance to my reps. And this, and again, like, and this is really how I can challenge them as well. So if somebody says, hey, I want to be 200% of my number, I want to be 150% of my number, and we're 2 weeks into the month and they're only at 50%, they don't have futures. I'm like, yo, what's good, right? Like I thought, like, are you still trying to get ahead to 200%? If that's the case, here's what needs to happen. And by the way, here's this one thing that I'm seeing here that's getting in the way. So this leads to the identifying trends and efficiency and effectiveness, and also diagnosing the issues. So I would imagine, I don't know if this is true or not, but I would imagine that everybody here has probably had that one boss who gave direction, like who gave feedback, zero direction, right? They're like, hey, I think that there's this thing that's wrong, and they have no way to actually prove it, right? Like they're not looking at any data. They're basing everything on feelings, or they're like, hey, I know that this is a problem, but they have no idea what's at the root of the issue. So they provide coaching and feedback that is actually not going to solve the problem. So like as managers, as leaders, as SDRs, BDRs, whoever else it is, like there are certain ways that we can start to figure out what is in the way. So some of the key KPIs that I'll look at, like the key like indicators that I'll know or that might be getting in the way of something and that would point me to being able to see what is the issue, is like number of touch points. Like that's at the absolute base level, right? But I also want to see the number of connects. So someone sends out 100 emails, they don't get any replies. We should probably talk about that, right? Like, so like what's going on in these emails? That's the problem. If I'm looking, so like that's the touch point to connect ratio. The lower it is, the more that I'm going to want to go in and see, is it time of day? Is it the information that's going on? Is it the information, the data they're using that's ineffective? Is it the messaging and the relevance? So like, there's got to be something that's there. Connect to demo, right? So if people are having conversations and it's not actually like resulting in a demo, what's going on there? I mean, Gong is going to be amazing for that, of course, right? Because we're call coaching. Well, there's more than call coaching, but I can actually go in and start to see, all right, if I'm seeing that one person on my team has a bunch of CC interested, like call connect interested, but no demos are being booked, I can go in and start to like listen to these calls and figure out what's going on here. Is it that they're marking the wrong disposition? Is it because they're talking to the wrong person? Are they not actually asking for a close? Or maybe, yeah, maybe there's something else that's going on. But the more that I can really get ingrained and like and mixed into their work and using the data to point me into the direction, again, the more relevant that I can become as a manager and the better that I can make my people, because I know exactly what is getting in their way. And then I could from there prescribe some kind of recommendation and provide some kind of guidance to help them improve. Cool. Wonderful. So like that's the numbers piece. And then this is where we get into the feedback, right? So there's a few things that have happened, right, in these first two slides in terms of establishing agreements and then knowing the numbers. So establishing the agreements, you are getting consent from your rep to provide the feedback. And then with the numbers, you are making sure that your feedback is quality work to continue to maintain that trust that you've already built in establishing the agreements. So a few things that I would highly recommend for the feedback is, number one, show your work, right? So in this last slide that we were just at, you're identifying the trends in efficiency and effectiveness. So for me, like I'll look at data on a week-to-week basis. I also track data on a month-to-month basis and on a quarter-to-quarter basis. So if I'm talking to someone on my team and we know that like, hey, I really want to improve my email reply rate over time, right? Like I can start to see, all right, hey, in efficiency or effectiveness, you're either getting better or you're not. Right? Like, and I can track that on a month-to-month basis. I can show them the data as well. And that way it's not just me and my opinions, it's something legitimate that a rep can understand. So this is what I mean by show your work. And then the next piece of this is make it specific and deliver it in a timely manner. If someone is putting CEOs into a customer success sequence and sending that out, it does not help for you to give them the feedback 3 months after the fact. Right? Like you should know this because you're literally all up in their business, not in a micromanaging way, but you are making sure that they are really setting themselves up to be very, very successful. And you're giving them that timely and specific information. Like, hey, William, I noticed that your email reply rate is 3%. I also noticed that your unsubscribe rate is 33%. When I went in, I looked at the emails that you were sending, I noticed that you were putting CEOs into a customer success sequence and that a lot of people are unsubscribing. Here is the very specific sequence that you should be using instead. Super simple, right? Like I would imagine that once you start using this specific sequence, that is where you'll start to see less unsubscribes and a higher reply rate. Any questions? Am I totally off? What might be going on there, right? So this is what I mean by like showing your work, make it specific, deliver in a timely manner, because no one wants to be in the position of being a rep where 3 months after the fact, they're doing all these things that are not right. And then all of a sudden you tell them, hey, by the way, people are going to be like, why didn't you tell me beforehand? So here's a pro tip that I have for you on top of that is normalizing giving and receiving feedback, right? By establishing, let me raise my thing real quick. So by establishing ongoing and frequent communication. So the ways that I do this with my team is, I do like check-ins with my team. Like I just want to establish a really solid communication line with them. And so these check-ins are on a daily basis. So like in the morning, we have our team stand up, but maybe a couple hours into the day, I just send them a message like, hey, William, hey, Oleg, what's like, how are you? Right? Like, how's it going? Those kind of things, just to let them know that I'm thinking about you. I care about you. If something's popping up, we have an opportunity to chat. Now, the next thing that I'll do is I talked about like setting expectations for KPIs. Let's say it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the reps time, and they don't have any activities. They don't have any calls, right? I've already sent them a message saying, hey, what's up? The next thing that I'll do is I'll say like, hey, just checking in. I noticed that your calls are pretty low. Just was curious, like what might be going on? Are you running into any roadblocks? So like the one thing that I want to make clear here is I don't want to set a precedent with my team, or I don't want to set an expectation with my team that the only time they're hearing from me is when I'm giving critical feedback, right? I want to establish just really solid lines of communication that is a mixture of checking in on them, positive feedback, constructive criticism as well. And that way they're going to engage more with the feedback that I have for them. But I also, another piece of this is, so that's on a daily level. If there are weekly and monthly KPIs that I want to track for them, I'll also let them know where they're standing. And again, all of this is going to be based off of what are their goals? What do they need to do to accomplish their goals? And so I, as a manager, become much more of like a partner. It's almost like that coach on the sideline for a track and like for somebody who runs long distances or something like that. Like they're going to be the ones that are saying, hey, you're falling behind pace. Here's what you need to do instead. So these are like a few pro tips that I have for folks in terms of here's really how you can challenge people, but also make sure that you're challenging them in a way in which they would like to be challenged and that they're welcoming to being challenged as well. And then the last piece that I have for my slides is, again, it's the importance of teamwork. So I came across this quote years ago: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And funny enough, I was actually in an interview yesterday with a SDR candidate at Gong. And one of the things that they shared with me was they were coming, I was like, hey, like, why are you interested in coming to Gong? You've been at a company for like 6 months, right? And the person goes, I felt like I didn't really get that hands-on coaching and training that I really wanted out of my leader. It took me 3 months of just flailing, right? And like not doing well in the role before I just went to the top performers and started to ask them for help. And in him going to top performers and asking for help, he started to see that his numbers went way up. And so one of the things that I think about as a manager now is why wait for an SDR to fail or to not do very, very well, and for them to proactively have to go and ask top performers for advice. We have so much power and influence as leaders to facilitate conversations for everyone on the team to learn from each other and to really create a collaborative environment. So like there's another quote here, which is what a rising tide lifts all ships. So like this, we as managers, we can be the ones to create that tide, that rising tide. And so what this can look like is create, like for your stand-ups, what is the learning and development objective of your stand-ups? So for with my team, on Tuesdays, like we have a Tuesday topic, and this might be something that has to do more so with the emotional and kind of like mental disposition of the team. So so I'll give you an example with my team. One of the big things that people are talking about is trust. I noticed coming up over and over and over again in one-on-ones. And so today we listened to a TED talk on trust, and we have a conversation about that. So this is one part of like, let's find ways to have a conversation. Let's find ways to come together as a team. Let's find ways to share like our differing opinions. But with that, we all have an opportunity to learn from each other. So that's much more on like kind of like the wellness kind of piece of what I'm trying to create on my team. But another part of this can be like the skills. Like if I know that I have one person on my team, I'll name names. Like I have one person on my team, Liz, who's phenomenal with her tech stack, has found so many interesting ways of becoming more efficient and more effective in her work. But I also know that half the team doesn't know any of this stuff, or is trying to figure out a way of accomplishing what she's accomplishing, but has no way, doesn't know exactly how she's doing it. What I'll do is, hey, we're going to do a Friday weekly workshop. And Liz, I would love for you to share how you're using Sales Navigator to create lists or to use smart links, for example, and then we can have a conversation on that. So what ends up happening is, rather than me waiting for 3 or 4 people to hopefully go and ask Liz for help, I'm creating the conditions for them to learn and to share, to collaborate. And also, what's something beautiful that happens is the other folks on my team who also are using Sales Nav in a really interesting way are also able to share, here are some more tips and tactics. So this to me, like the team is the thing that holds everything together. It's the thing that like supports everyone else. Of course, there's so many things that I can do as a leader to challenge and motivate people. But what I really do believe is that people are going to want to corral around their peers, support their peers, and also they want to see their peers be successful and to feel as though they're not alone. So like one big thing that I would say here is like, definitely don't neglect the importance of establishing a really, really strong team culture, and also finding out what are the strengths of each person on your team, and how can you leverage the strengths of each individual to then support the greater whole of the team as well. So those are my slides. Yay!
Yeah, cool. Amazing. I actually saw your slides a few days ago, and I was super actually interested in the very first one when you talk about like expectations.
Yeah.
And I just realized, wow, I have never been doing that at all, like kind of at all. So that's I really want to like implement myself.
Yep.
Amazing. So in the meantime, feel free like to prepare your questions. We'll have a Q&A session later after our slides. So we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Okay, then let's share my screen now, and let's talk about our past. Amazing here is that we may have some controversial, even I would say polar opinions on some things. So which is cool, I think, because that's how we can learn from each other, I guess. So that's amazing. I will share those different things. When it comes to our SDR onboarding process, we have had a long path to build our perfect sales SDR onboarding program, and it took us a few years actually to build this. When I joined Reply back in 2017, we had no onboarding program at all, no best practices, no knowledge base, and it took us like 4 months to onboard our very first SDR after. Then back in 2019, we have actually put together some basic knowledge base regarding best practices. We have started building our actual onboarding program. And in 2021, we have finally built a pretty good, I would say, onboarding program. We keep polishing it. Currently we have tons of best practices, knowledge base, and we have successfully onboarded 3 new SDRs using this new program. So I would also love to share our do's and don'ts during your onboarding program. So first of all, we do not introduce our quota as soon as possible. We wait like for a month or so before we introduce their quota. We actually do not leave on their own during the onboarding process. They can ask questions, an SDR manager or their mentors, any other people in the company if they have needed information. We do not actually explain best practice chaotically. We just focus on one thing per day. For example, we know that 80% of all information that SDRs receive during their onboarding process, like they will forget it next day. So there is no need to like mix things together. It's better to explain one topic per day, and also we have recaps. So we do not explain a topic only once with no recaps. So we don't also have the same onboarding process for inbound and SDRs because those two things are completely different. And we do not maintain the status quo because we listen to to their feedback to the new hired SDRs, and we improve our SDR onboarding process with every new hired SDR. So here are our do's. We do, as I mentioned before, we do not introduce quota as long as possible. We do show them each process, workflow, and playbook from A to Z, like even how to schedule a meeting or how to update our CRM. So we also have recaps on playbooks and tests to practice them and remember as much as possible. And we also save everything, like even some rare how-tos in a knowledge base. We also spend a lot of time on product and knowledge industry, and we do teach our SDRs as much as possible, but we let them improve their strengths. For example, we have SDRs who can fully rely on cold calling, and we have SDRs who can mix VDRs and LinkedIn touches. So yeah, we want to be flexible and incentivize actually that flexibility. We also slightly modified onboarding process based on their experience and strengths. And we do pair newcomers with multiple mentors who can explain topics they are strong at. For example, as I mentioned before, an SDR who is super cool at phone calling can explain even more than me or another SDR manager these topics. So that's how we pair them with multiple mentors. And yeah, we help SDRs understand how to prioritize their tasks and daily routine. So we'll talk about this in the next part of our webinar. So Gabriel, what do you think? Will you agree with those things, or maybe you will disagree with something here?
No, I do. I think we had one request was just to can we go into present mode so that we can see the full screen?
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, thanks. So
Yeah.
you good with this? Yeah.
All right, cool.
Because I guess you're very extroverted SDR manager, while I'm kind of introvert. So our biggest do number one, we have everything documented. So SDRs can actually find any information they need in our systems, so they can type something and definitely find an information. So that's our biggest do number one, have everything documented. And our biggest do number two is to store the most important playbooks as an SDR onboarding courses. So they can repeat them over and over again if they need to understand the most important parts of their job. Yeah. And that's how actually our SDR onboarding 6-week plan looks like. On week 2, we just talk about company intro, our ICP, sales tech stack. On week 2, we just talk about exclusively on touch points like emails, LinkedIn, cold calls, personalized videos, and other channels, nothing else. On week 2, we talk about inbound sales development process. Then typically they can book their first demo. Then we just talk about outbound sales development process. On week 4, we just share a few things here, and then we introduce quota. And after that, we will have our part two of the onboarding program, and we will talk about some advanced things like personalization at scale, best practices for LinkedIn connection requests and stuff like that. We will talk about future of sales development, about no-code and low-code tools, and yeah, so that's how we onboard our SDRs. Yeah, so and now here we have another and the last poll. Here's the question: do you have an established SDR onboarding process or not? It's something I'm really interested in. Will you bet this time, Carol?
Yeah. I think I was a part of a webinar or no, I was in a class. I was not part of a webinar, but they were asking about do you have an established onboarding process? And if there was an answer, like it's like somewhere between yes and no. It's like, yeah, more or less. More or less we have something.
Okay, so this should be 50-50, I guess, right? More or less, more or less.
Yeah, it's 50-50.
Okay. So I'm curious, what do you think about this onboarding process? Will you change it? How does it look in Gong, or what are your suggestions here? What do you think?
I would say, sorry, I'm just putting in my headphones. Someone's walking in the background. Um, yeah, I think so. There's a few things that I really like about this like the 6 week plan. I think where a lot of companies might stumble is they try to avoid like the week one activities or so week one, in my personal opinion, should be very much focused on, yeah, your ICP. Like, why does your company exist? What are the challenges that present itself or that manifest where, you know, your company becomes relevant, and who is it relevant to and why do they care? So like if you can get SDRs really up to speed on that, then everything else becomes way, way better. But otherwise, like if you're just trying to teach on like just the sales, like just the tech stack, just product information, but not really understanding like what are the problems that your customers and your potential customers are experiencing and like why does it matter? Then you're just going to have people pumping out a bunch of activities with irrelevant information. And they're going to be talking to people, but not really knowing what questions to ask. They're just going to be pitching a bunch of things. So like that to me is like week one. Absolutely love that. Let's see. I think, and I think there's a couple other things. The only one thing that I would not agree with is waiting until introducing quota. Like, I feel like it's like, hey, because here's my thing. I'm just like, hey, like, here's what the like, I'm very much like, let's just set the expectations, but it probably all depends on what the culture of the company is. And like, yeah. So for my end, I'm very much like, hey, like, let's talk about expectations at the very, very beginning. So that way you know, right. And that, yeah. So you know what it is. There's no guesswork whatsoever. You know exactly what I'm expecting out of you, but you also know like how I'm going to support you to be able to get there. So that would be like the one thing that I would do sooner. I'd be like day one. Yeah. Like this is how you make money. Okay. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Yes, amazing. Cool. Wow, great. Okay, then let's go to our second part of the webinar, and let's talk about personal productivity tips and tools to help your SDRs organize their daily routine. So here is just a list of my productivity tips I share with my SDRs. So first of all, I ask them to structure their daily tasks into time blocks, like a 15 or 30 or 1 hour blocks per one task. Just focus on this only one thing. For example, cold calling or LinkedIn connection request, nothing else. No TikTok things. Just focus on one thing. Prioritize. Also, ask them to prioritize tasks based on importance. So I ask them, your main goal is to book a meeting. So prioritize your tasks based on that. For example, if you have a new positive response, just stop doing any other things and book that meeting. If you have a kind of great positive response, just talk to that person and stop doing other things. And so that's how they can prioritize tasks based on importance. Then I ask them to have all tasks organized in one place. Do not use tons of tools like Trello, Slack, CRM, sales engagement platforms. Just have only one place for your tasks. I think sales engagement platform is perfect perfect solution for this, because that's how you can even track your sales sequence generated tasks, like emails, like personalized emails or connection requests or call calls, if it is a part of your sequence. So just do not use tons of tools. Sequences are the best way to be productive. Nothing, in that case, nothing falls through the cracks, right? So when you enroll a prospect to your sequence, all of them will be in the same sequence with same tasks. So yeah, just rely on sequences and everything should be fine, I guess. Have all playbooks documented. As I mentioned that before, you can always find needed how-tos, playbooks, workflows there. And less meetings. Like in opposite to Gabrielle's ideas, I say, okay, let's have less meetings. So no daily stand-ups, check-ins, tons of KPIs. Just let's be focused on generating meetings. So no daily stand-ups, check-ins. If needed, we can communicate asynchronously, so that's fine. And less bureaucracy. So we'll let them adjust their style when they start achieving quota. So for example, as I mentioned before, we actually have SDRs who can just rely on cold calling and achieve their quota. So why should we force them to use, let's say, LinkedIn or personalized lead yards if they're okay with that? So yeah, it's I guess it's it can be even improved based on Gabrielle's expectations part of her onboarding program, because that's how we can ask, what do you want to, maybe you want to learn new things or new channels. So yeah, that's what I wanted to improve as well. Do you have anything to add here around?
I mean, I see the no daily stand-ups, check-ins, tons of like total opposite of what I shared. But no, but I think there is a piece here of every minute like every second matters for an SDR, for a BDR. So I'm very much in line with that. And I really do think that it's just a matter of like, what is the culture like? So for me, it's more so, all right, hey, I don't want to have a stand-up for the sake of having a stand-up. I don't want to do a check-in for the sake of having a check-in. It's very much how to, like, I also have to think about like, how am I going to enable people to win back more time or to become that much more effective? So like, that's what those meetings are for. But I've definitely been at a company where stand-ups are pointless. So it's like, don't have a reason, have an intention for it 100%. And then I 100% agree with like the less bureaucracy. Having like KPIs are supposed to be like a guideline initially, especially if you're ramping reps, which is, hey, like, here's really what you need to be working towards from a process perspective. But once they've mastered a process, or once they have demonstrated that they have this, like they have the know-how and the skills to be able to meet the expectations of the business, then from there, I think the best thing that we can do is to let them explore, because from that exploration that they're going to have, like, that's how we as leaders can start to figure out what are better ways to do things. So I think it's like, and giving people agency and autonomy over their work and allowing them to explore, like, what do they do best and how do they do it in their absolute best? Like, that's really where we can start to learn what other ways can we be successful? And also as leaders, how can we become that much more relevant to more people, right? Especially if we're trying to like recruit the best of the best or have a more diverse team. So I think this is beautiful.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Actually, to be truly honest, we had those daily stand-ups like every day, every morning, starting from Monday till Friday. We had 20-minute daily stand-ups, and after a few months, I just realized, oh my God, it's so boring. It was like a great idea. I guess it was amazing to share new thoughts every day, but then I realized we get used to those things and nothing new was happening actually. So we canceled them. Just have one or two like calls per week if needed, and weekly 1 hour meeting with the team. All right. So yeah, as I mentioned, as for me, it's quite important to have one place for all your tasks. It's important to use time blocks and prioritize tasks based on importance. So SDR should focus on things that can generate a new meeting right now, I would say. So, okay, so that's how we help SDR structure their day. We have a document. So we actually have things from 1 to 7, and when we share this with this document with newcomers, so they can learn how to structure their day. And we have playbooks for all those things. They can just get used to things. And again, when they are ready to achieve their monthly quota, okay, they can adjust their daily tasks based on their preferences, I would say. So time management and organization, it's the step number 3, have all tasks organized in one place. If you rely on multi-channel sequences, for example, calls, LinkedIn touches, vidyard, personalized vidyards, SMS, things like that, it's super hard for SDRs to kind of complete all these things. So it's quite important to use, I don't know, your sales engagement platform or CRM to track all these tests, and more importantly, filters them based on a type. For example, you can filter all sequence generated tasks like phone calling, and then block 30 minutes of your time just doing cold calls. Then the same for LinkedIn, and the same for personalized emails and so on. So yeah, that's quite important, I would say. And we emphasize these things for our newcomers. And yeah, then let's talk about productivity tools. Here are our things we use at Reply Slack. Recently, they upgraded their application. Now you can send voice and video messages, so it's easier to communicate with your SDRs if they have a very specific question, or if they ask about like, can you help with this email or this objection? So now it's easier to send them a voice message. So we use Loom for synchronous communication because we're a full remote team. We use Slide for knowledge sharing and playbooks, CrispAI for noise canceling during cold calling, Grammarly as our writing assistant, and Zapier-like tools for no-code automations. So yeah, that's our tech stack for productivity. And yeah, what about your team? And what they pick, Gabriel?
Yeah, let's see. For productivity tools, I'm thinking, I've even thinking about like Chrome integration. So there's one thing we use Salesforce. So some of the things that I like, little tiny hacks, it's like the difference between using reports inside of Salesforce and using list views, like contacts and accounts. It's like, hey, like here's how you can win back a few seconds. But if you think about like a few seconds for 50 people that you're touching, like you get minutes, if you can get like hours back in a week kind of thing. So it's like trying to educate people on what are all the different functionalities within the tool sets that we're using so that you can win back a few clicks. So that would be like one thing, using list views inside of Salesforce instead of reports to take action off of. I mean, there's other things that we're doing as well, like such as if we're using an engagement platform and we know that's like one of the things that we want to do is every time that someone opens an email more than 2 or 3 times, we want to trigger up for them to make a call. It's creating those automation tools that will alert an SDR to know, all right, you should be taking action on this kind of urgent task over here. So it's like really thinking through like what are the things that we can do to make sure that SDRs just don't have to think about what they're doing. And I think other things that we're trying to think about other things that we're doing. Again, I'm like a Salesforce junkie. I'm like, how can we like if I have one top performer on my team and I know they're really good at finding really great accounts, one of the things that I'll do is go in and shadow how they find accounts and then flip that into a dashboard. So they don't have to like take 1 hour to find 8 good accounts. They can find 20 good accounts in a matter of 5 seconds. Right. So those are some of the things that I've been doing. And then also like, I think about contact data. So, I mean, we're using So we're using a few different tools, but each one of them is likely going to have a Chrome extension on it. So it's like making sure that SDRs have those Chrome integrations set up, that they know how to use it, and are able to set things up in a way that can easily take action on it without having to flip between a bunch of different tabs. So I think it's like even on the meta level, it's how can you reduce like how many clicks an SDR needs to take action on something. And if you can reduce it from like 20 clicks to 10 clicks, that also means they could probably make like 10 to 20 more calls in a day. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I love your last point. Actually, we even also used an extension for this. I forgot their name. This, for example, if I type something, I can simply double click, and as you can see here over here, there is this text is actually auto copied. So that's how we can reduce a few clicks, like clicking Command C and Command V twice. And when we kind of copy and paste account information on when we do our enrichment tasks for inbound SDRs, so they don't have to click like tons of things like the industry, company size, location. So they can just hover their mouse on the word, double click it, and the text will be auto-copied. So yeah, it's another cool productivity tip. Thanks for mentioning it. And
yeah,
also I use
what was the name of that extension?
Auto-copied, I guess. Auto-copied. Yeah. Auto-copied. And I use Vercona for organizing my tabs. As you can see, I have just like 3 of them open right now. So that's how you can organize your tabs into workspaces, and you can kind of switch between workspaces when you switch your task, like when you do lead generation or reporting or talking to your management team. So you can simply open all tabs, just changing your workspace. So that's another cool extension. It's called Vercona, like work on A. And yeah, and another slide here is, as I mentioned before, all these productivity tools helps SDR spend less time on repetitive tasks and concentrate on what matters, like booking meetings. And Zapier for SDRs and Zapier-like tools. I'm a huge believer that one day SDRs could be replaced, and I think Zapier is one thing that can like replace some routine tasks right now. For example, we rely on Zapier. We extensively rely on Zapier. We have tons of Zaps, and we actually, as you mentioned about before, we actually notify SDRs about some cool buying intents, like when someone visits our G2 profile or when someone registered for a webinar or things like that. So that's how SDRs can get information about new hot prospects and enroll them to sequence just right from their Slack account. So that's another productivity tool. And I do think that no-code and low-code tools might replace SDRs one day. What do you think about this? Yeah.
I mean, I don't agree that SDR should be replaced. That's a no. It's a no for me, dog. So no, I mean, I haven't seen, I'm trying to think about this. Like I haven't seen, because what CRM are y'all using at Reply?
It's Scalper. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there are a lot of things, there are a lot of things that we're using like within our tech stack that are where we're not using Zapier specifically, but we have other tools in place that's doing this automation for us. Like the piece of automation that I love is, what are the things that, like, all right, how about this? When I was an SDR, one of the things that I would tell myself a lot is, or one of the things that I recognized was, the less I have to think about things, the better, right? I wanted to leave all of my, like, this is why, like, right, you have folks like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg who wear the same outfits every single day, or who wore the same outfits every single day, is because they recognized they only had so much decision-making effort and energy. And so they didn't want to, like, they wanted to focus all of that on the things that were actually going to matter the most to them. And choosing out their outfit for the day wasn't one of those things, right? They're trying to mitigate decision fatigue. So like same thing for SDRs, like what are the things that they're going to have to make decisions on every single day? And it's always going to be the exact same thing. That to me is the perfect use case for automation, right?
Yep.
Such as, all right, hey, like, again, if it's like some of the automation could be done through a dashboard, such as, hey, here are your top accounts that you need to work. Here are your top leads, right? Like, how do you make that automatic? How do you bring it to the SDR's forefront rather than having them go and search for it, right? That's going to be the best. It's going to be better for the business, better for our prospects, better for the SDR. We're going to get better results. So like that to me is like perfect use case for automation. And that way we can leave like, because I don't think SDR should be gone away with. Like that's where we can start having what are human beings best suited for, right? Where machines might not be there yet and they might not ever get there. It's going to be that empathy. It's going to be the rapport that you can build. It's going to be the personality. It's going to be the creativity in the writing, creativity in the conversation. It's going to be the fluctuations and the intonations in their voice. So I'm like, it's going to be asking those questions that are going to get people to think critically or strategically. So I'm like, if I can get all of my, like, if I can preserve as much energy and effort for my SDRs in focusing on the conversations that they're having instead of who are the 50 people that I need to call today.
Yep.
Like that to me is the beauty of leveraging technology to automate a lot of things that just don't need a lot of thought power. Instead, enabling reps to really focus on what are going to be the things that they uniquely are suited to do and that they can do the absolute best. So,
yeah, totally agree with that for sure. It's like just leave creative job for SDRs. Yeah, I think that's not a thing of 5 years, but yeah, one day eventually I think that's gonna be case. But thanks for the answer. Okay, then let's get started with questions. I will actually read some of them for you, Gabriel, and you can answer. Okay.
All right, cool.
I
think we've got a few minutes left. So I have to run in 3. I've got a meeting in 3 minutes. Okay, cool. So I know there was one, are we just going from the Q&A section of like, how do you build KPIs?
Yep.
With Hanan. Okay. So, there's a method called the waterfall method of setting KPIs, right? So like, at some point, so normally what will happen is a business will say, hey, we need to generate X amount of pipeline, right? And from there, you can reverse engineer how many opportunities do you need to generate that amount of pipeline? And then what is the responsibility of SDRs? The last company I was at, like we said, SDRs are going to generate 60% of the pipeline. So, all right, based off our average deal size, how many opportunities is that? Great. So if I need to get 100 opportunities, it's like, okay, well, then the next part of this is, all right, how many opportunities can one SDR generate? That's going to let me know how many people I need to hire for headcount. Then after that, like, it's like, what comprises one opportunity? So that's where you can start looking at how many activities does it take to generate, like, essentially, like, how many meetings do you need to have to generate one opportunity? How many conversations do you need to have to generate one meeting? And then how many touch points do you need to have to get one conversation? And so based off of that, like, reverse engineering, you should be able to come up with what are the KPIs. So that's part of the exploration, because sometimes you're going to have to start thinking about what channels are best suited to generate. So it might be, all right, I need to have 10 calls and 10 emails and 5 social touches to generate one opportunity. That'd be really great. Actually, that'd be really great conversions. But like that to me would be the process of, this is how you start to build the KPIs to support what is the one thing that your team is really responsible for. Companies that I've been at, we've been responsible for generating opportunities. So we need to reverse engineer how do we generate one opportunity and look at that across calls, emails, socials, prospects worked, and accounts worked. And that's what's going to give me a very clear picture of what should the KPIs be as a first iteration.
Awesome. Then another question regarding not having daily stand-ups or check-ins. We actually use weekly company-wide messages from team leaders. So they share updates every week on Tuesdays. So every person in our company can see what's going on different departments. The same with SDRs and AEs. So yeah, I guess it's great to have check-ins and stand-ups. Yeah, I'm sure it's great a way to manage teams as well, but we just rely on asynchronous communication, I would say so. All right, then question about how to prove to my CEOs that we need HubSpot and automations. There are so many things to talk about, but how to summarize this. I think that Gabriel has already shared the best pitch ever. If you have lots of repetitive tasks, you can definitely automate that. So your SDRs can kind of focus on creative things, right?
I have one more thing on here is so there's for how to prove your CEO that we need HubSpot and automations. One of the things that I would do, and then I got to run. So this is something that I did in the past. We had a tech stack, but it was incredibly inefficient. And so what I did is I started to just measure, just observe and document what was happening already. So like, let's say, all right, hey, in 1 hour, an SDR can do 5 calls, for example. And so based off of this, we can only expect X amount of opportunities and X amount of pipeline based off of what they're able to do with a fully optimized tech stack that we have today, right? That's how we start off. And then the next part of this, because here's the thing, if you are hitting your goals today with what you have and your CEO does not believe that you need to do anything more, your CEO is not going to invest in it. So that's gonna be the thing. They're like, no, we're peachy keen. We're gonna be totally fine. Now, the next part of this is if your CEO is saying, hey, Daniel, you need to 2x what your team is doing today by next quarter. That's where you have to go. All right, what is keeping you from getting 2x of your results? And if it's a matter of, hey, we can actually start to 2x our activities, like just volume of activities with HubSpot and automations, that's how you start to build your business case. Or you present it as, all right, if you want my team to do 2x of what they're already doing today, we're going to have to be 2 times better at our jobs. And so it's like, so something's got to give. It's either going to be, you set your team up to be able to do more volume, or you're going to set your team up just to get way better at their job, or some combination of the two. But that's really how you can start to build the business case of, this is where I would need support and resources. It's either going to look like enablement, or it's going to look like enablement like programmatically, or it's going to look like enablement from a tech standpoint. So good luck. All right.
Okay. All right, cool.
I got to jump though, William.
Yeah.
I'll see you later. Thanks for having me on.
See you. Okay, so one more minute here from you guys, everyone. So one more thing here, we will have Sales Development Excellence. This is the very first virtual one-day event here at Reply, so feel free to join us next week, October 21st. And of course, we will have Gabrielle there as a speaker. She will be sharing even more things about managing your SDR team and coaching your SDRs. So yeah, feel free to visit our website and just register for that event. And one more thing, thank you everyone for joining us today. This was amazing to have you with us, and have a wonderful day, have a wonderful evening, and thank you.